Theodore came to pick me up. That man, always cold and abstinent, actually let his new secretary sit in the passenger seat. I knew then that this marriage was doomed that day. Theodore drove to pick me up. When I opened the passenger door, I froze. Sister-in-law, the girl greeted me politely, but made no move to get up and give me the seat. I narrowed my eyes and turned my gaze to Theodore. He was hanging his head, answering a call, unaware of the undercurrent. Here we had originally made an appointment to go to the auction together today. I had looked forward to this date with him, dressing up meticulously, but I never expected his passenger seat to be occupied by someone else. Sister-in-law, my name is Vivian, Theodore's new assistant, the girl said, her lips curving into a warm smile, which brought out to shallow dimples, looking extremely sweet. I heard you're going to a private auction tonight, so I begged Theodore to take me along to see the world. Don't you worry. I won't disturb you at all. My heart sank to the bottom in an instant. I knew this cold and perfect man too well. He had always kept a distance, never easily letting others get close. We got together because of a marriage alliance. A mutual choice. After much consideration, people outside joked that I would be living a lonely life, but after confirming our relationship, Theodore would hug me with gentle eyes. And when he was moved, the corners of his eyes would turn slightly red. He said, "You are my wife. And husband and wife are one. You are naturally different from others." Today, it seemed like something had changed. That I was not a doddering plant that swallowed its anger. I was Sarah who never needed to look at others' faces when I was angry. "Sit down," I said coldly, driving her away without leniency. The girl was stunned for a long time, not expecting that I would make her lose face on our first meeting. Maybe my tone was too harsh. Vivian was at a loss for a moment. I'm sorry, sister-in-law, the girl said with a crying voice, then sat down in the back seat in a dejected manner. Theodore just finished his call and looked over it as he realized that I was angry, and a look of helplessness and indulgence spread across his face. The man leaned over to fasten my seat belt. When I noticed that the seat position had been adjusted, I impatiently readjusted it. After all the trouble, I was fuming. Damn it, why does someone dare to adjust my passenger seat? The atmosphere in the car turned cold, and the girl was too scared to speak. Theodore frowned slightly and suggested to me in a calm tone, "If you're in a bad mood today, we can go home first." The woman in the rearview mirror was silently crying. I felt extremely annoyed. "Vivian, right? I'm not in the mood to go now. You can take a taxi back by yourself. Theodore and I are going home." The girl's face turned pale, and she looked weakly at Theodore. But the man had no intention of helping her out. The girl got out of the car in a state of despair. Theodore would never make me lose face in front of others. He always knew how to control his emotions. So he suggested that I go home. If there was anything, we would solve it at home. This was our tacit understanding for many years. She's just a college student who just entered society. Why do you bother with her? Theodore hugged me. First time, I said. Theodore looked confused. What? All these years? This is the first time you've let another woman sit in your passenger seat. The man didn't expect that this was what I cared about. Everyone in the circle knew how excellent Theodore was. There were countless women who liked him. But he kept himself clean amidst the chaos of charming flowers. He never got involved with any. Theodore smiled and ruffled my hair. "I didn't expect you to be jealous." The man leaned down to kiss me, his nose brushing against my cheek. "She's my subordinate. That's all. There will be no other relationship between me and her." Theodore held my face and looked into my eyes, making a solemn promise. A woman's sixth sense is always accurate. Even though I only met Vivian once, my intuition told me that this girl must have other thoughts about Theodore. I thought that the power play at our first meeting was enough. But I didn't expect that the necklace that was supposed to be given to me at the auction was around the girl's neck. The next day the chief assistant, as Theodore's top assistant, sent me a photo and a screenshot of a Moments post. In the photo, the crescent diamond necklace was around Vivian's fair neck, making her look even more delicate and lovely. The girl's eyes were red and swollen, but there was a smile on her lips. It seemed that she had cried a lot when she got home last night, but received a gift from someone. In the screenshot, it was a Moments post from Vivian. The president said that girls should be strong even when wrong. Dry your tears. Yes, having fulfilled my obsession. My president. There were several cute fist emojis, and a picture of the necklace in a box. At that moment, my blood almost froze, although it was hard to admit. I had to confess that I was almost driven to lose my composure by her. It was a terrible feeling. Like a cherished white handkerchief stained with a pool of mosquito blood, this feeling was strange to me. I even wanted to, regardless of the facts, ducked of my yellow Ferrari at 180 mph each and slapped that woman in the face. But looking at my hand, I felt that it was really demeaning of me to even pay attention to such a low-quality green tea. I called the Hermes saleswoman. In her voice, there was uncontrollable joy. She assured me over the phone. "Don't worry, Mrs. Shen, even if we have to empty Shanghai today, I will get all the goods ready and send them to you." So that day before work, except for Vivian, all 46 girls in the general manager's office and the assistants of all the bosses at the headquarters of Shen's group received a generous gift from the president's wife. A Hermes necklace worth 120,000 yuan, although the unit price was not as high as the 2 million yuan auction necklace. It was better because there were many people. So it could be said that it was fair to everyone. The assistant handled things smoothly. Each of them was required to post on Moments with the caption, "The president's wife says every girl deserves better." Fists clenched. Yes, my president's wife. Naturally, The girls who received the gifts were happy to comply as assistants and members of the general manager's office. They were practically the gossip hubs of the entire company. Now that they'd gotten gifts from the president's wife, who wouldn't post pictures with grinning enthusiasm? Some of the sharper ones even added at the end of their captions, "The president's wife really knows how to play." The influence of these assistants might not be huge, but their ability to spread news across departments was terrifying. Within half an hour, the whole company knew the president's wife had given out Hermes necklaces. As for why, the office gossip groups were already buzzing with speculation. Vivian's face turned ashen, as if deeply humiliated. Her eyes red. She ducked into the bathroom and took off the diamond necklace to colleagues who came in to touch up their makeup, saw her and let out ambiguous snorts. Vivian, utterly mortified, hung her head and hurried out, the mocking laughter growing bolder behind her, her cheeks burning. She put the necklace back in its box and returned it to Theodore and opened. Theodore had just ended a video call with his partners. He looked up to see the girl, clearly having cried again, clutching the necklace box, staring dejectedly at her toes. "What's wrong?" he asked, puzzled. Vivian's tears spilled before she could speak. Sniffling, she looked pitifully up at him. Theodore, please take this necklace back. I don't dare keep it." A flicker of irritation crossed Theodore's stern face. His gut told him something had happened, but he didn't press. He simply watched her in silence. Vivian bit her lip, hesitated, then finally blurted out the whole story of what had happened in the office that day. "Theodore, I'm sorry for always causing you trouble," she whispered, sobbing. "I just posted on Moments to encourage myself. I didn't know the president's wife would see it. I never thought she'd get so angry," she added, looking as vulnerable as a small rabbit. "Theodore, I want to apologize to her. I can explain everything in person." Theodore had never been in the habit of checking Moments. His days were consumed by work. But as the group's president, he knew all too well the company's penchant for spreading baseless rumors. His already frosty expression turned colder. He said flatly. That evening, Theodore brought Vivian home. The girl stood timidly behind him. "I asked Vivian to come so she can explain things face to face." Theodore sighed. "Sarah, Vivian is just my secretary. I gave her a gift as an apology for yesterday. That's all." I stirred my silver spoon, finishing the bird's nest soup the housekeeper had made. "Mrs. Shen, I'm sorry," Vivian said earnestly, bowing to me, her voice trembling, her posture meek. It was the first time I'd received such an expensive gift. I got carried away with happiness. "If I did anything to upset you, please tell me. I'll fix it right away." I raised an eyebrow. "Vivian, is it?" The girl glanced at Theodore, as if seeking courage from him, then nodded slowly, watching her, a rookie trying to challenge me head on. I couldn't help but laugh. "I'm not your teacher or your boss. I don't have time to teach you how to behave," I said. "But I am Theodore's wife. So let me be clear, anyone who flirts with my husband won't get a second chance to fix things." The girl looked like she'd never met someone so blunt. Her embarrassment deepened, leaving only a facade of fragility. Sarah, Vivian is here to apologize, Theodore said. He knew my temperament and tactics. Even if he didn't approve of what I'd done today, he understood why I'd done it. So he didn't argue. He'd agreed to let Vivian apologize, a concession to smooth things over. We were both smart people. A single glance was enough to convey meaning. I know, I said, deciding to give Theodore a chance. After all, he hadn't actually cheated, but there will be no next time, not for anyone. You didn't have to use such tactics against a girl. Theodore brought it up before bed. You should have told me first. I sat at the vanity brushing my hair, watching the handsome man in the mirror. You knew I liked that necklace, yet you gave it to someone else. Was I not supposed to be angry? I shuddered to think. If this perfect man ever tarnished himself, could I still love him as I did? Theodore poured himself a glass of ice water at the bar, calm as ever. She cried all night because of your misunderstanding this morning. Her eyes were so swollen. I gave her the necklace as an apology. It was a spur-of-the-moment thing. No cracks in his story. 2 million was a trivial sum to us. Giving it away on a whim was plausible. It all depended on whether the recipient was worth it. His knuckles tapped the marble counter. He was waiting for me to process it. This was the first time a third person had caused friction between us. And our upbringing made the whole thing feel exhausting. We both valued dignity above all. Theodore. I love you, I said suddenly. His fingers paused. He hadn't expected that. I love the spotless version of you. I went on. That's what makes you different. You used to keep women at arm's length because you had a flaw in your attitude toward feelings. You wanted a clean marriage. I wasn't always like this, but your values rubbed off on me. Now we share the same goal. A marriage with no detours. Theodore sighed. I haven't strayed. Theodore was too sharp to miss the subtext. He knew I minded. So he'd never give Vivian another reason to hope. Without the president's support, Vivian, as an intern, could only start with the most basic tasks. She used to get rotations at the front desk, but now, the chief assistant didn't even schedule her for shifts. I never instructed anyone to push her out since Theodore knew where to draw the line. I trusted him completely. But these things don't require my orders. There are always people eager to curry favor and step on the weak. Within half a month, the new secretary couldn't stem the gap in her work or the psychological blow. She lost weight visibly. The turning point came after an important executive meeting. Vivian was assigned to clean the small conference room alone, scraping gum off the carpet. Theodore, who'd returned unexpectedly, caught her in the act. Sensing someone behind her, the girl stood up in embarrassment. Flustered. Theodore's gaze was deep and cold. That silent stare stripped Vivian of all her pride. Theodore. Tears dripped from her eyes. Unbident. No acting, no pretense. He'd always been the unreachable son she admired. When she was sidelined, she'd almost resigned herself to it, but being seen like this by him, she wanted to push him aside and flee. In half a month, the once cheerful girl had grown this fragile. It was the first time Theodore lost his temper. He came home, snatching the water glass I handed him and smashing it to the floor. Water splashed everywhere. Why won't you let her be? He snapped. Sarah, I respect and love you. I've endured your insults and harm to her again and again. Does bullying the weak give you some kind of thrill? I remembered. During his study abroad, his junior high school sister had jumped to her death after being bullied. It was an indelible scar, making him loathe such cruelty. Sarah, stop using these tactics to hurt others. Otherwise, I won't stand by anymore. I stared at the man, his composure shattered. After marriage, this was the first time Theodore had lost his temper at me over a woman, over something I hadn't even done. It hurt. Like glass shattering, like water spilled, impossible to retrieve. Theodore promoted Vivian to his personal assistant. He also fired the chief assistant without hesitation. The woman who'd worked with him for 7 years. Figure out who you're working for, he told her. The assistant, stubborn in her way, replied, for you, Theodore. Some things I handle privately with the wife, but only personal matters. The man tossed a schedule in front of her. Is that so self-righteous? Does your professional ethics include using power to bully others? The assistant fell silent, knowing she'd been caught mistreating Vivian. Her courage faltered. The lack of tolerance, inability to tell right from wrong, mixing personal grudges with work. What qualification do you have to be chief assistant? The assistant left the office dejectedly. Outside, the other assistants looked on sadly. Sister, are you really leaving? Before the tears could fall, she wiped them away. Yes. Goodbye, everyone. Theodore and I fell into an unprecedented Cold War. He moved to a hotel. Vivian came to pick up his clothes. If Theodore wanted to make life hard, he could outdo me. The housekeeper, forewarned by phone, had packed his daily essentials. Vivian, probably still intimidated by me, took the suitcase and left quietly by taxi. Before going, she said cautiously, Madam, Theodore asked us to add each other on social media. You can contact me if you need anything. The chief assistant was gone. Vivian had taken her place. No need. Tell him to stay as far away as possible, I said. Vivian looked confused. How could I stay so defiant when Theodore was living apart? But her eyes held more than confusion, there was triumph. The housekeeper shook her head, trying to console me. Madam, why not apologize? You two never even argued before. How did it come to this? She'd been with the Shen family for over a decade. Longevity had bred affection. He's waiting for me to apologize, isn't he? Ridiculous. Why should I? Theodore never came back, but Vivian's social media updates grew frequent, mostly about her and Theodore's schedules. A private Chanel gown. An invitation to a private equity dinner, $1 million fireworks at a summit, a night view from a Burj Al Arab. A photo with the CM of Qingfeng capital. All gushing about how meeting the right person opened new doors. Her posts got hundreds of likes. Some even suggested she start a Dewey an account to share upper-class life. Mutual friends sent screenshots, adding a question mark. Now you can track Theodore's whereabouts through his secretary's posts. We were all smart. No need to say more. Once, it was mostly me accompanying Theodore to events if I was busy or unwilling. His assistants took turns. Now, his constant female companion had changed. I didn't bother replying to the friends' kind reminders. Just send a thanks emoji. I was having the Jia family's accountants handle our asset division privately. It was a huge, complicated task. Our marriage alliance had tangled the two groups with cross-holdings. There were family funds I managed, countless investments in real estate, metals, stocks, ships, even some overseas properties. I needed to see the addresses and photos on the deeds to recall them. Sorting it all took time. Then, I got a call from Theodore, who'd just returned from a business trip. Mom wants us to come home for dinner. We acted as if nothing had happened, as usual. The driver picked Theodore up from the airport. Then came for me. We were going to the Gu household together. Theodore and Vivian, who traveled with him, sat in the back seat. They even left the passenger seat empty for me. Vivian's smugness was palpable. I almost laughed at my own predicament. But this time, I didn't bother asserting my claim. I accepted the front seat calmly. Theodore's expression was frosty. The air around him icy. Sister-in-law, we just got back from Manhattan. Vivian chattered. As chatty as ever, though her demeanor had grown more mature. No doubt trailing Theodore had taught her a thing or two. The old lady said she missed Theodore, so I picked up some gifts on the way to visit her. I said nothing, closing my eyes to rest. Vivian, rebuffed, fell silent. Theodore's lips remained a tight line. Died. No words were exchanged the entire ride. When Howard saw Vivian, she looked surprised. The girl greeted her smoothly, introducing herself with practiced ease. She seemed a master at ingratiating herself. In no time, she'd made Howard laugh heartily at the dinner table. Vivian regaled Howard with little anecdotes about Theodore's work. Howard nodded, smiling approvingly when Howard asked about Theodore's daily life. Vivian chimed in just as naturally. The atmosphere turned awkward. Vivian, her dimples still showing, finally realized she'd overstepped. She wasn't that foolish. Details of daily life on my domain to share. Howard wasn't stupid. Theodore said nothing. I dabbed my lips elegantly. Mom, I'm pregnant. Oh, really, Sarah? Howard's eyes lit up. When did you find out? The man, who'd been stone-faced since I got in the car, finally showed a flicker of emotion. I raised an eyebrow, mischief glinting in my eyes. Yesterday the doctor said I'm 3 weeks along. Howard practically danced, rushing to call Mr. Howard, then fussed about accompanying me to the hospital tomorrow. Vivian looked stunned, her wide almond eyes feigning innocence. Sister-in-law, could you have mixed up the dates? Theodore and I have been abroad on business for the past 2 months. Howard froze, shocked no mistake. I said, emphasizing 3 weeks. I checked with the top obstetrician. Theodore knew full well. He hadn't been home during that time. This child wasn't his. The warmth that had briefly softened his face vanished. Sarah. A storm brewed in his voice. Though he fought to contain it, as if waiting for an explanation, I smiled. Triumphant. Congratulate me, Theodore. I'm going to be a mother. Don't joke about this. He said coldly. I placed the prepared pregnancy report on the table. Unfortunately. It's no joke. While you were on honeymoon with your lover, I got lonely. I spent some nights with old flames. Now I'm not sure who the father is. If you don't mind, the child can call you Dad, but he'll take my last name. Each word I spoke deepened the chill in his expression. Enough, he snapped when I finished. I ignored his rage. How does it feel? Theodore, being cheated on? He'd never imagined I'd brazenly cheat. Then announce it with such self-righteousness. Proudly carrying another man's child. I never cheated on you, his hands clenched. Veins bulging. The news clearly shook him. It was work, nothing more. I never crossed the line. I stroked my stomach, tuning out his belated defense. Your secretary posts about your work days on social media every day. Haven't you seen them? Even our friends noticed and warned me. You still think that's not crossing the line? You take her stargazing. Well, having fulfilled my obsession, I can discuss poetry and philosophy with other men. Theodore lost his temper, a rare sight. I barely cared. Even felt a twinge of regret. Too bad, Theodore. I didn't get to bring a man back to Shen Garden. Compared to your little stunts today, I'm still outmatched. Theodore couldn't fathom it. He thought he and Vivian were above reproach. Nothing but work, minimal interaction. He only used her to send a message to those around him. Why had things spiraled so far? He'd always believed their marriage was stable, even happy. Sister-in-law. Theodore and I are innocent. Vivian hurried to defend herself in front of Howard. Mrs. Shen and I have spoken on the phone. I came along to visit since it was convenient for work. This is all part of my job. You've never worked in an office. Maybe you don't understand. As the chief secretary, you have to handle everything, but Theodore and I really never crossed a line. Vivian sat up straight beside Theodore. Is that so? I shot back, unsparing. On the way here, you sat next to Theodore while the president's wife took the front seat. What happened to your handling everything then? Did it get fed to the dogs? She fell silent. She fell silent. Tongue-tied. I turned on Theodore. Is this the chief assistant you personally trained for 2 months? Your last assistant was also a woman. Also your secretary. She'd been with you since college. Did she ever sit beside you like that? She was far more thorough than Vivian. Did I ever target her once? Theodore's breath came in ragged gasps, the corners of his eyes flushing red. Let us get a divorce. Theodore. The man ragged me home, leaving Vivian behind at the Shen Manor. It was his first time back since our Cold War began. The house was already half emptied. Even the live-in nannies had been dismissed. Theodore froze, staring around in disbelief. This home we'd shared for 3 years felt alien now. He finally realized my divorce wasn't impulsive, it was premeditated. Theodore's eyes glistened, disbelieving, as he pulled me into a vice-like hug. Sarah, I didn't cheat. His voice was low, defeated, brushing my ear. Get rid of the child. We can start over. I laughed bitterly, pulling back. It's my child. Why would I abort it? My calm seemed to pierce his heart. I did nothing wrong. You know that. I broke free of his grip. Yes, I know. You're still clean. But what did that matter? You let Vivian come here to pick up your suitcase. You knew it would bother me. You took her to every event. You knew I'd be gossiped about. You knew it all, yet you did it anyway. You let her provoke me, humiliate me, push me to beg for peace. You hate that I bully the weak. But Theodore, did you ever see that so-called weakling deliberately crossing my boundaries, again and again? Tears spilled as I replayed it all, unable to fathom how our marriage had crumbled so easily. You knew she had feelings for you. I warned you, Theodore. Willful ignorance hurt far more than mere foolishness. Theodore trembled and steady on his feet, his voice a whisper. I'm sorry. Sarah, she reminds me of Amanda. I was scared you'd become like those monsters too. Amanda with her two sweet dimples. I just couldn't stand to see her cry. I never felt anything for her. Watching his remorse, I felt nothing. Maybe he was innocent. But I refused to hand my vulnerabilities to someone who might hurt me even inadvertently. Theodore refused to divorce. He hired a new male chief assistant. An elite. He even got blind drunk in the wine cellar. I struggled to drag him to the couch. He was quiet, docile in his inebriation. But as I turned to leave, he caught me, red-eyed, clinging like a lost child. Sarah, don't leave if you want this child. Have it. Please. As for Vivian, big companies had rules. He couldn't fire her without cause. But his deliberate coldness sent a clear signal overnight. The once enviable personal assistant became the butt of private jokes. When Vivian found me, her youthful glow was gone. No amount of makeup could hide her exhaustion. I saw you on my first day at work, she said, surprising me. I served you tea, stood by waiting for orders. You and Theodore were talking about wedding gifts for a friend. You never looked at me once. Her tone turned mocking. Amen. Like Theodore? I'd never have met him without this job. You? You just got lucky with your birth and you married him. She smirked. Recalling past boldness that night at the auction, I told Theodore it was rude for employees to sit behind the boss. I said I'd move when I met you. He didn't say Nenda waiter to bring her coffee and dessert, my usual poise clearly irritating her. Her eyes reddened. Hatred flaring. What gives you the right to look down on me, you trust fund baby? You don't deserve Theodore's love. Do you? I asked, calm, watching her unravel. That childish face strained to look composed. Admit it. I threaten you. That's why you're divorcing him. I stirred my coffee slowly. I'm divorcing him because I cheated and got pregnant. You knew that, didn't you? She choked on her words. Losing control. What's there to gloat about? A bad-tempered, jobless old woman who cheated and got knocked up by some nobody. You think Theodore will still want you? Slap. I didn't hold back. First, I'm 2 years younger than your precious Theodore. Second, who the hell are you to call my child a bastard? Third, I've wanted to do that for a long time, idiot. By the time my belly was for months swollen, the Shen family knew there was no turning back. Under their pressure, Theodore agreed to an amicable divorce. The cross-holdings between our groups were too extensive. Our parents saw no need to disrupt profitable partnerships. Prenuptial assets were split clearly. No disputes. Joint investments were sorted meticulously. Theodore signed calmly. He looked like a white crane fallen from its pedestal. Wings broken by his own hand, blood staining once pristine feathers. We parted with dignity, bidding each other farewell. When the baby was born, he took my last name. Percy. Outsiders thought he was premature, but his genes were strong. My mother pestered me about his father, but I never told her the one-night stands were a lie. They didn't need to know since he was a boy. My parents stopped urging me to date. They planned to raise him as their heir. As the little rascal grew, he looked more and more like his father. Freed from the constraints of marriage, I've lived wildly and freely these past few years. I've even dated a few young, handsome men. My assistant occasionally chats with me, and through her, I've picked up some gossip. Vivian lasted less than 6 months before she couldn't stand it anymore and left. But in this circle, word travels fast. No major company dared to hire her after that. Theodore has grown colder and more solitary these 2 years, focusing solely on his career. Every year in shareholders' meeting, my father asks me to return to the country to represent him. I know what my parents are up to. I find it amusing, but can't be bothered to expose them. After the meeting, Theodore always pulls me into his car, saying it's on his way to pay New Year's greetings to my parents. So Percy adores Theodore. Someone must have secretly told him this is his father, because he waddles over, yelling "Daddy, hug." Every time he sees Theodore. Theodore dotes on him, never refusing now that the child is growing into his features. How could he not know? During the new year, I stay in the country to reunite with my family. Theodore cancels all his work to stay with us. He's asked if I want to remarry. I refused. When it comes to marriage, it's better to have none than settle. Otherwise, you're just making yourself miserable. Oh, and though, lights up visibly every time he sees Theodore. He insists on sitting between us, chirping mommy and daddy happily, non-stop. I tapped the back of his head, telling him not to stop calling randomly Theodora Redden, and he doesn't know what to do. He has a million I'm sorry yes to say, but I don't need them anymore.